for stuff. You gotta for example, I gotta make sure
we got
because the lava lights are there. I have some nice flowers back there, but the lava lights are.
I'm pretty sure Landon. I'm pretty sure Landon woke up today and chose violence.
Yes, he did. He did.
You never know. You never know.
You never know what's going on. You never know what's happening between people. Like, you never know who's getting involved with who. I can't keep track of everything.
and by being making that stuff irrelevant, then you don't know, right? That's the sort of thing. It's nice. It's nice when someone says, "Did you hear about blah?" And I say, "Who is that?" Right?
Oh yeah, that is a good one.
I must be the only person on the planet that didn't watch that trial with that actor and the other actor, right? Divorce thing or whatever it was.
That's enough.
Allegedly.
Oh my god! Oh, you mean the Vic Mignogna case between the voice actors?
Oh, I did.
Or was it the Johnny Depp?
Oh,
yeah, that one.
My
that
god!
One, that one. The guy that's.
Oh, that one.
I must be the only person on the planet never. Oh. Did we start?
Hi. Hello there.
Oh.
How's everybody doing?
Oh my god, we are live. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Me.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your time zone, latitude, and volcanic smile status. How you doing?
Did you say volcanic smile status?
Yeah,
oh,
I mean,
my Lord.
She's got a nice grin. We want to keep going there. But how are folks doing, volcanic wise?
I mean, I'm in Ontario. I'm pretty sure our volcanoes are looking pretty flat.
We have had we have had regular seismic activity, if I might say.
Yes, New Zealand is very wiggly.
I've had a very regular bowel movement the last couple of weeks.
Well, for Canada, Canada, your volcanoes are in BC, but yeah, so you're away from it. But I did want to do a public announcement regarding volcanoes in New Zealand.
Yes, go on.
So I don't know if we're ready to do a screen share or not.
Oh yes, we are absolutely ready. Are you ready? I'm ready. Are we ready?
Let's go, baby.
Let's go.
So
it didn't switch. I didn't. There you go.
Oh, there you go. So here we are. I'm going to talk about White Island. White Island is a volcano off the coast of New Zealand, the North Islands up there, and there's been an event that's happened where White Island has basically lost all of its instruments. They had some volcanic monitoring equipment there, but due to the acid and clouds, that equipment degraded and it hasn't been able to be replaced. So they were currently sort of blind in terms of understanding instrumentation. It's hard enough as well because this volcano, while it doesn't have lava shooting up, water gets down to the near the magma, flashes the steam, and goes boom. And so because we no longer have the instrumentation, I really recommend people staying away. I have no idea if the tours have stopped, but if I were a responsible government official, I would close off the island at this stage until we know what's going on.
Yeah.
But
the White Island volcano has lost all instruments. Oh my goodness! Holy shit!
Yes, and so I'll go back here. And so they actually raised the level to 2. It was at volcanic levels of 1. 0 is not erupting. 1 is it has indigestion. 2 is it's not erupting, but it could, right? so 2 out of 5.
The bowel movements have started.
Yes,
you started it.
I
you
do
are
not
not blaming me for this.
No, Landon started it. Sorry.
It would be nice if they're able to put in instrumentation that's more hardened against acid. It's a difficult thing. We've had some successes of doing that in Kilauea, but
well, I mean, I guess now they have the opportunity, right? Like, if they've lost all instruments and their instruments are messing up, now's a good time to switch them out.
Yes, and until they switch them out and get telemetry back in there, even so, with the telemetry, it's notoriously it's like trying to predict a irregular geyser, right? But they can get some ideas if an eruption is there. So right now it's not erupting, but they don't have the instrumentation. So
that's huge. But, that seems like that sounds like kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. So that's why it's raised to level of 2. But in this island, in this show we concentrate mostly on the Kilauea volcano in the Big Island, Hawaii. Here's the Big Island down here. This big guy, and there's Mauna Kea, where the nice telescopes are. Mauna Loa, the biggest active volcano in the world, and Kilauea is sort of this lovely bump on the side that's probably one of the most active volcanoes in the world. And Kilauea has here's the little, if you see in this inset over here, you can see that this is Kilauea on the edge of the island, and we have this wonderful little lava lake out here. By little meaning it's about a kilometer and a quarter across. It's actually.
You mean a little less compared to as it was before? It's shrunken in size as time has gone on.
Well, it actually has expanded. I mean, that we had predicted that the lava would flow up into this little north area, and it has.
Yeah.
And but here's this thing is Gilligan's Island, the here, and this is sort of the active part where the lava is coming on the surface. But this whole thing is acting like a bread that's proofing, right? It's expanding,
rising,
and yes, it is definitely rising. And in fact, if you look at the status page here, in terms of that it's still quite active. But what I did was I took a look at the status today versus the status that was on our last show. And so let's see what's happened between the last show and this show. Well, the sulfur dioxide output is a little less, but still is significant, about 1,300 tons per day of sulfur dioxide putting out. The crater floor, that caldera where 0 was the start of the eruption. This eruption started in September 27th of last year. The rise went from 137 meters to 143 meters. So it's gone up 6 meters since we have our last show. That's a lot. That's 20 feet. That's 20 feet for those that are metrically challenged. And that's a lot. And you say, well. That's not, you say, it's only 6 meters, but considering the area, the volume has gone. This is the volume of lava that has gone from 104 to 111 million cubic meters. So that's about an increase of 7 million cubic meters over that time period. That's 1.7 billion gallons. And you look at the rate.
This sounds like it's almost enough. Sounds like it's almost enough to fill a mega pint.
Yeah, or 2.
That's never going to get old.
Yes, I should have calculated this in megapints. But if you look at the average flow, right, over this period of time, there was 350,000 cubic meters per day. That's a little bit over 4 cubic meters per second. Or that's like 1,070 gallons per second.
That's a lot of fish
added to the lava lake. So, Olympic-sized swimming pool, 2 meters deep, would be filled in 163 seconds, on average, between the last time and this time. Yeah. So even though you say 6 meters, it's a little less than three minutes for Olympic-sized swimming pool. By the way, it turns out there's it depends on what kind of Olympics you're talking about. If you're talking about the swimming stuff, it's a different volume than if you're talking about deep dive thing. But nonetheless, 4 cubic meters or over 1,000 gallons per second has been going into since we last met. So when you say, oh, it rose 6 meters, it's pretty significant given the volume of stuff. So
and that's just
Madam Pele is still,
that's just under a month that's gone by, right? Just under.
Yeah. Since the 27th of August. So Madam Pele is still she's quite busy. Her dance is still going strong. That we certainly had more gas volume coming out in previous months, right? Because we had one where it was around 2,600 or so. But still, this is still going quite strong.
So does that mean that just to be clear? Sorry, does that mean does that trend mean that we're getting more magma and lava movement and less gas movement?
It's the lava movement has been about the same since the previous month. There's been more gas output, so that might suggest that there's less fresh magma coming towards the surface. You actually say, well, why? And there could be several answers, many of them contradicting each other. So to say, oh, it's slowing down, right? Again, remember how much lava is coming into that lake now, right? It's coming at a pretty good rate. So it's not slow by any means. It certainly is not as vigorous as when the eruption first started back in end of September of last year.
Right.
But if we look at the tilt meters, right, and remember we talked about these deflation and inflation cycles, right? There it goes, deflates, comes on the bottom, and then inflates like this little sort of this kind of V type thing. And this represents what we think is a turnover of the magma underneath the lake, right? That when it starts to inflate like this, you've had a turnover, you've got fresh magma near the surface, it begins to gas out rapidly, and then that magma loses its buoyancy, begins to sag, and then it sinks in while fresh magma turns over. And so the rate of turnovers, right, here's been the last month. We can see these turnovers here. It's kind of like, think of like the mountain's heartbeat. When it comes time to say when is the eruption ending, one of the things they're going to look at is gas output, and they're going to look at these DI cycles. Now, we saw in our previous show, this month thing had fairly regular DI events. And in the middle of the month, it looked kind of like it was slowing down. Or if these are DI events, they're kind of small stuff, like it was having atrial fibrillation.
I have a question. So you said that the amount of sulfur dioxide that's coming out has gone down. Is it something significant to note?
Not 100 notes. 100 tons per day is not a significant drop.
Okay.
We've seen cases like in 2008 where it was in the 40,000 tons per day coming out, right? So it certainly has had more, but that's a matter of like how fizzy is the magma.
Yeah. So is it like telling us?
So it's a little less fizzy.
Is it like telling us?
Right.
Yeah. So is it telling me that the magma is hardening, and so the sulfur dioxide is not getting the space it needs through the lava to escape, and that might get that because of the the magma is hardening, that gas is getting trapped somewhere inside, causing like a pressure cooker situation. I don't know. On those bases.
That's a good question, and there's other telemetry that suggests no. In fact, so we see these DI cycles, right? And so right now it's inflating, so the gas is coming out. So you would have found if you measured the gas at this rate when it's deflating, it would have been down. If you measure the gas when it's inflating, it goes up, right? So it kind of averages there. The thing was that there wasn't really significant DI cycles in the middle of the month. So it wasn't as gassy, but it had a really big DI event beginning of the month. And that was a pretty significant one. And it's back to being regular again. The thing, on the other hand, you look at is look at this graph. This graph is a distance across the caldera. They have 2 precision GPS units, and they're looking at what's the size of the caldera at the top? How big is it? And this drop was when the eruption started, and slowly has increased, but it reached a peak and it seems to have leveled off, in fact, sagged down. So why is what I'm saying is that the mountain was expanding and the distance has kind of contracted, right? So why is the distance contracted, but slightly, right? We've seen contraction before it expands, so it's not as if it's going to fall in. It's not like this thing where the great 35.5-year eruption ended and it went boom and the whole thing caved in. This has just been a slight thing. Well, there's 2 ways that the mountain can sag in. One is that the magma has pushed up so much that the mountain is kind of stretched and it's falling in on itself slightly. The other is that there's less push, right?
Yeah.
So the answer is it's hard to tell. If there's less push, we should see over time the sulfur dioxide rates drop, right? So if we started seeing sulfur dioxide rates in the 100, sub-1,000, couple hundred tons to almost nothing, right? Then you say, okay, it looks like the eruption is winding down. They would then see, well, do we still see DI cycles, right? Because it could be it's stopped, as you said, because it's plugged, right? That the magma's managed to seal it off, and therefore you would expect to see a little bit of expansion, like a bubble, right? But it stopped. Here, it seems like it's still coming out. It's not as vigorous, but again, remember this previous time it was up and down, up and down, up and down. So just because we see it down doesn't mean it's ending, right?
Yeah, it's important to look at the length of time you're looking at, right? This is a little blip over a longer trend, yeah.
I mean, the longer trend, this was the 35.5-year eruption that where it stopped. And we had that brief eruption back in December 2020, and then it restarted again, and you see it's kind of going up. So from this standpoint, it's not speeding up, it's not slowing down, it's remaining relatively constant. But we'll see, right? When you look at earthquakes, of course, the volcano the area is seismic active. This is set of earthquakes over the last four weeks, 505 earthquakes. Here's Kilauea up here in its top. Here's the top of Mauna Loa. Now the colors here, if we bring this thing over to look at the legend, the colors talk about the depth, right? Deep earthquakes have a notion that magma is doing something underneath versus very shallow, there's something happening in front. Well, if you look at the top of Kilauea, we see fairly shallow earthquakes that are near the surface, right? Because that's where the activity is. Represent very deep earthquakes in terms of depth. Why is it giving me in those units, SIL units? But anyway, it represents stuff. I mean, this is represent. So if we just say, I want to know about the earthquakes that are 20 kilometers or deeper, now we see it's this region where stuff is coming up.
How much would a deep earthquake like that be felt on the surface? Is that something that we notice, or we tend not to notice, or is that just based on how big it is, strong it is?
Shallow earthquakes are more noticeable for their energy than deeper ones, right? Okay. Shallow earthquakes can do more damage if they're big. Deep earthquakes, if they're big, can still create damage, but it's now the energy is spread over a larger volume.
That makes sense. It's like squishing an ant.
Yes.
Oh God.
But if you open palm slap an ant, you're not likely to kill it. But if you like squish it with one finger, you're more likely to kill it.
So if we look at
less area, more pressure. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Of the 505 earthquakes, 86 are deep ones, right? So if we get rid of the deep ones and say, just show me the really shallow ones, well, we see the really shallow ones are up here in Mauna Loa, and they're continuing to monitor Mauna Loa, because this represents magma doing stuff near the surface, right? And of course, Kilauea as active. There are a couple of quakes going down the spine. This is down that lava tube, but we think this is more of the island kind of settling. Yet, if you go a little bit deeper, you find there are still some more quakes that are deeper, deeper still.
Is that what tips you off that it might just be it's settling? Is because more of the earthquakes are lower down in that area?
Yes, if the magma were on a move, right? If it had entered the tube and began to go down, you'd start to see piles and piles of earthquakes going down the line, right? You'd see this. You would see a line sort of as it comes out and some point breaks out. We're not seeing that yet, and we know, given the level of the lake, that the level of the lake has not drained. If it found one of those tubes and started pouring into the mountain, we might see the lake level drop, because now the magma is moving, and we'd see the rocks cracking as the magma is pushing its way down the spine. And this is something that they're monitoring very, very carefully, trying to go in and look for a pattern. So this is sort of more random pattern of things. When you look at like the last 2 weeks again, and let's look at last 2 weeks, and you say, well, a lot of earthquakes, but if we turn off all the ones that are small, these are the quakes you might feel, right? There's a couple of quakes down here on the coast that you could have felt if you were really careful. But most of the stuff on the summit, there you don't have big quakes because it's lava and rock around. Everything's all sort of cracked.
Right.
So you wouldn't necessarily go in and be able to, again, over the last 4 weeks, if you look at stuff. I mean, 3 is a tiny quake.
Right.
4 or 5 would be noticeable. We had 2 quakes that you could have, when you're standing, felt them over the last 4 weeks. Whereas, last 2 weeks, not much.
It seems like one of those things that had we not had if we weren't looking, you wouldn't notice any of these things.
Yeah.
And so it's important to monitor and notice these things and, have good equipment so that way you can keep track of this kind of stuff.
You know exactly what you're getting into if you're getting on an island, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and so if you saw a train like this, right, it was going down here, right, that's a thing that magma might be on the move. But you would also see the lake drop or not rise as much because now magma is moving somewhere else. You'd also see the tilt, right? This if it starts to bulge out, it's like having really gassy gut, right? You feel the stuff moving through your intestines, right? This is gassy stuff that would kind of bulge, and then the island would literally start bulging, and earthquakes as it starts bulging would be around that area. We don't see that yet, so we don't believe that magma's on the move down this way or down this way. This is certainly, again, this stuff is deep stuff of magma interacting coming up, and there's a lot of debate as to what's going on here. But this is part of the plumbing system that heads towards the sun.
Is it possible? Is it possible that, as you're saying, it's deep activity? There might be magma that's trying to come up, and it might open another vent up there, down there. Sorry.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, no, actually, there is magma coming up. That's why it's erupting on top, right? This is the magma reaching the upper part of the crust and causing it to start to crack. Right? It's deep enough that the crust still has some structure and can break. So this is evidence, we think, of the magma on its way up to the top. And this has been there for quite some time. There isn't evidence that this is starting to get shallower. It's always been this deep stuff, right? 20 kilometers deep or more, right?
Yeah, we're not seeing like more shallow earthquakes on top of it. And if we started to see that, then you would be concerned that it's
then you say, okay, it might
through.
be a whole be odd because it's opening a hole when it's got this nice
right
going up to the top, right? You would, if it started erupting here or working its way towards the top, one would think that you would see a reduction of activity here because it's got something to go, but it's not. We think this is the bottom of the sort of hard crust reacting to the magma on its way up to the surface.
So that's just like basically where it's going from rock to magma, where it's got like a channel where it's coming up from even deeper down, and that's just where you were starting to see where it's making that change.
Yes. There's also this is obviously high pressure that deep, so there are other gases coming out of solution that might also be driving this thing. So there's another theory that says that there's a gas with a much higher boiling point that's starting to pop bubbles. Plus, you have the ocean crust is thin here out in the middle of the ocean, but again, we might be seeing the bottom of the crust that's actually hard enough to start cracking.
Is there anything that says that the gas and the magma have to come out the same vent, or is it possible that one could come out one and one is coming out the other based on like their temperatures?
You can have a place where gas comes out and not magma. Towards the end of 2008, that 35 and a half year eruption, most of the lava came out at a place called Pu'u'o, where it flowed. It was around here and it flowed towards the sea. And what would honestly that happened is it poked a hole at the top at Halima'omau around 2003, but it kept erupting here and down here. And so what happens, the magma would come up to the surface. You'd have this lava lake that never got up on top, and it outgassed. And so you had less gassy magma that would work its way down here and come out the side.
Now, would that make it more safe almost? Because now there is no gas coming up with the magma, and the magma is maybe a little bit easier to see and avoid?
It certainly made the Pu'u'o output have less gas, less vigorous, right? We thought that some point, there's times where the Pu'u'o vent would collapse and almost like would seal off. We thought, like, okay, now you've cut off the hose, so it should start to expand and go fountain at the top. But it never did that, in part because the magma would just break open the hole again and reflow. So even though Pu'u'o here stopped for several times during that eruption, the magma kept outgassing here and coming out here. And the odd thing, the last time it happened in 2008, where the thing collapsed. Collapse we're talking about where the bottom of the crater dropped like 300 to 400 meters.
Oh, wow.
Down. Right? And it was a big thing with a bunch of quakes along the side. And all of a sudden we started seeing earthquake going, you see earthquakes heading this way. And that famous eruption, it opened up cracks here and flowed out. And that's where it took out that cove and that the vacation home resort, that the big flow of almost a few kilometers came out at the end. So you'd think, hey, it collapses here, it sinks down, you've got this nice hole, why did you come up the top? No, it went downhill, down all the way towards the end of the island and flowed out here.
That wouldn't have anything to do with gravity now, would it?
Yes, very good point. And in fact, that's where when that thing happened, right? When you talk about where's our map? Here is a map. I was hoping didn't we have eruption map here? Okay, yes. This big pit that formed, remember on our tilt meters, where is it here? On our tilt meters, when we had this big drop at the end of the eruption, this is where all the magmas left the summit, went downhill and came out at the very end of the island. When that happened, this whole hole. Basically, the thing fell in. Right? That's where this deep pit occurred.
I would bet you money. I would bet you money. Do you mind going back to the graphs real quick for a second?
Sure. Here.
The tilt graphs. I bet you any money that you could sit around and plot a graph that would look almost identical to one of these to anybody streaming League of Legends.
Yes. Yes. And you know,
I did not see that coming.
There's a bar on the Big Island where people can there's a money pot you put in where you place your bet as to what the graph will be. At the end of the day, the money goes to charity, and the person who wins gets a free beer. Right?
That's nice.
So you know, you can for stuff. So if you know, you have a better chance of getting the gas lottery.
As soon as you called it a tilt graph, I was like, oh yeah, I see.
Hello.
Yeah. Yes. So as I say, we got a lot of earthquakes, but we're not seeing any trends either this way in the spine. Because remember, when we come back to the graph over here, remember this is the summit, and there's two spines to a shield volcano. This is the one where most of the thing eruptions have occurred over the last 40 years. But there's this spine here that's possible. So we're going to look for signs that the magma might be moving down one or both of those pipes, because this is downhill, and then at some point it breaks open and flows. Right now, of course, it's confined to the very top. In terms of will this lava lake change shape over the next month? Well, it's got to go up another 30 meters to reach over here. This line here is another 30 meters higher than this line. So this represents 30 meters. When we did the change, remember we said, where was the thing about the change? Over this last month, it went up 6 meters. So to reach up in here, it's got to go essentially another 30 meters. So 6 meters another 6 meters might give us a little bit more here. Yeah.
5 more months.
If it continues going at the same rate. Now the thing is, at some point, the tubes which sent it with the lava, the magma tubes that are going this way, right? These two spines. At some point, there may be enough pressure to break it open and start trickling down there. And that would certainly affect the top. You wouldn't necessarily have a complete drain, because a lot of this lava is now kind of crusty and soft, not as fluid. But it would certainly slow down the rise here. So how fast it can get to 6 months will also depend upon whether or not it opens up any holes.
Because the pressure is also pushing inward, isn't it? As the height goes up, the pressure is also mounting inwards. So
it's mounting, and of course this depends. This assumes that the magma coming to the top still has the same amount of gas. So you'd want to see turnovers in the magma chamber happening on a regular basis in order to say there's still enough gas to come up to have stuff going. Because at some point, the magma would prefer to do what it does, gravity, and sink and go down in Earth, right? But that's not the case. Inside Holy Mount Pit, we've seen this feature that's lasted now for over a month and a half, where it breaks open here at the surface. It flows this way, and it goes back down into the edge again. This is over 100 meters across. This span, and this is just one of the active parts you can see when you go to the edge and look down into the pit. Here's a particular thing.
Cool picture.
Cool as in hot. And this was a case I took. I liked the light right at the moment. Of course, Maanyaa is covering it, but I was watching somebody do some artwork. I guess if you go here, you can see this there was this artwork happening. And I was doing a screenshot because I looked over at the, okay, there it is. I looked over at the spot while this artist was doing artwork, and this is a twilight light where it was particularly nice and glowy in the, and it had a nice twilight lighting.
The ambiance.
Yes.
I wonder who that artist is, Landon.
I don't know.
Who that artist is.
I don't know. It's some thing, but it's very. I mean, it's very. There's a fiery character next to stuff.
Yeah,
I thought it was.
A lava pit.
And this is the picture from a helicopter showing the Holy Maanyaa pit. Here, this area up here that we saw. Here's the thing in more detail. This area up here was the new material, like this. That 6 meters caused it to rise up here. It's got some uphill to go before it can gain more area.
Yeah.
But here's Gilligan's Island, right? And over 200 meters across there, it's still floating on. And this is this lava flow here on the surface. But there's all kinds of breakouts here, and here. And remember, if you looked at this thing, there's lots of breakouts as well around the vent. So it still is quite active.
Chat just had a quick question about would a volcano go to sleep if he threw a virgin in it? And the appropriate response also from chat was, I think it depends on the virgin. Some volcanoes have standards.
And Pele definitely has standards.
The Polynesian, Hawaiian traditions do not really talk about virgin sacrifice stuff. That wasn't really done with humans. The offerings that were given to Pele are more mementos from. I think if there was anything, you had a revered ancestor that recently died. You might have teeth or bones from there as an offering. But they generally, the Hawaiians were not known to be big into human sacrifice stuff.
We do know that people now leave alcohol, and I, for one, would consider that an upgrade. I would definitely prefer alcohol over a virgin any day.
Yeah, and it turned out
high brand whiskey.
It used to be that it was Jack Daniels was the preferred whiskey, and now whiskey. Now the preferred whiskey is this. This is Copperworks from again, no plug from Seattle, and they get things like that. And again, they'll bring in a bottle like this, and when it come up to the area now, this is when you could get to lava, right? Right now, this pit is inaccessible by things that want to breathe, right? There's a lot of heavy gases that sit down here, not much way oxygen. In fact, the poor birds that get too curious come down here and they kind of fly around and they go boop. So there aren't people approaching this spot, but there are certainly pits and observation points where they get near it. But they'll take a bottle like this and they'll break it open and they'll serve it around to people there. They might drink about this much, and then they stick the rest. They might put some incense sticks in it and stick the rest there as an offer Pele, because the tradition is that you show her you're giving her good stuff.
That's what I mean.
You're like drinking it and saying, oh, okay, I haven't poisoned it for you. It's the good stuff. If I can drink it,
it's also sharing. It's sharing the same thing they
caring.
Might have yams.
I'm too old for virgins. Give me the good whiskey, thanks.
Yeah. There also the island grows a certain medicinal herbs, and Pele is known to smoke some medicinal herbs of various status. I don't want to get this channel demonetized, but
I'm from Canada. I'm in the clear. You can bring up whatever you want about a certain medicinal herb.
Yeah. But I want to say, this is another thing showing another state here of that spot. Again, this is a small spot of the overall flow here, And again, you can see another case of stuff in this flow. It takes about a couple minutes for the flow to go here and come down here. It's kind of odd that it comes up and goes down. It's like a boiling spot in there. There certainly is lava underneath here, but this is lava that's hot enough to reach the surface. It crusts over a little bit and folds in on the side.
It looks like a pancake.
Yeah.
Wrong.
When you go to the edge of one of the observation points, this is what you see. And sometimes, of course, the lava is coming out here. The volcanic gas kind of hides it. Right, depends on which way the wind's blowing. And again, these little hornitos where the gas takes minerals up. The minerals kind of played out, and you get this little fragile tower of crystally stuff. That's sort of fun. But you can see there are certainly spots around the rim besides the big area where the lava is pouring out. So that this spot here kind of depends upon which way the wind's blowing as to whether or not you can see it. But at night, if you go there at night, then you're going to see the really good image, right? Then at night you're going to see stuff like this, where the glow will come through the gas. So if you're going to visit, plan to go there, in the evening as well. Again, here's another set here showing where the winds change. This is again from the overlooks, and it's a pretty nice thing. Infrared image again shows that there's plenty of heat there and other spots around there where the lava is close, thin spots. Now, I do want to point out and want to encourage people to consider visiting Volcanoes National Park. The way you do it is you fly into Hilo, the town over here on there. You get a rental car, and it's about a 40-minute drive up to the national park. There, very easy direct drive, and it's that Volcanoes National Park is actually a complex. This is the main Kilauea summit with outflows. There's also Mauna Loa and some of the other spots here, but the most accessible part is where Kilauean's activity going on.
Are there any protected species in that area?
Oh yes, in fact, one of the ones, the nini, is a flightless bird, flightless goose. That's the state bird. But there's a number of other species that are native to the area that are quite protected. And in fact, if this goose, there's lots of, you can see some of them along the Crater Rim Drive. They sort of say, watch out for geese, because you can see over here, like, look at this. The national park would say, hey, check out wildlife and be nice to the birds. Here's showing the summit of the spot here. Again, here's the crater. Here's Halimau. You come in a park entrance. There's Volcano House. There's a nice visitor center. There's all these overlooks. Particularly this one and this one are quite accessible, and you can look down into the pit. There's also this short, easy trail that also bring you to the overlook there if you can get from the other side. So there's certainly places you can see, as well as if you go down the Crater Rim Drive, you can go down the down the Chain of Craters Road where old flows go. There's really interesting flows, again, all crusted over because everything's happening up here. This is Pu'o, where all that stuff came out on the side for 35 and a half years. But this is a really nice chain down to the ocean edge, and you go along really fascinating things of old flows. Again, the southwest zone here, this is where all those deep earthquakes are occurring. Here's the summit. This was a side area. There's some nice things. There's a nice drive. You can go sort of partway up Mauna Loa and get a good vista site. There's there's a nice winery up here. There's coffee plantations, a bunch of fun stuff.
Oh man, I just want to go on a trip with Landon to Hawaii and meet up with Maanyaa, and we'll go on like a big hike tour and do the whole thing.
Sure, absolutely. And there's nice, nice lava, old lava tube you can go through. Some good stuff here. Again, I do not have any financial interest in it, but one of the nice places to stay is Volcano House in the national park. It's a park going back to the mid 1800s. This was the place where Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, wrote Roughing It. He spent time describing in remarkable detail the eruption. But it's a nice historic lodge. It has some really nice view rooms of the caldera.
Oh
you can
my
see
God!
their mom over there.
Hawaii sponsorship
Wow.
And it's got nice little bed
Oh my
room
God.
for the forest view.
256 square foot room. Yo, that's bigger than some apartments I've seen.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh my
There's
goodness.
some nice rooms there. If you want more robust combinations, you can get this thing of camping. You can do camping, which is even cheaper there if you're into camping versus luxury stuff. But they also have things for camping as well. They have a really great restaurant with excellent food there. That an amazing chef. One of my favorite things there is the fire pit. This fire pit has had fire burning in it since, for like 120 years. They keep the fire lit. There's some nice chairs there. So late at night, sitting with a book or your art tablet, just rocking the rocking chair and having the craters in the background, and the fire is hitting this sort of stonework of Madam Pele there, and the fire pit is just a really nice way to chill out. Go to the bar and get some nice drinks and just hang out in front of the fireplace. Again, if you don't want to stay at the park, there's Kilauea Lodge in the town of Volcano. If remember from the maps here, where is it maps from the maps? Town of Volcano is just outside the national park entrance. And so this Kilauea Lodge is really nice. They have some really nice rooms if you're into B&B cottage stuff and so forth. It's quite nice.
They have the chat is asking for price ranges.
I mean, I guess if we look at the Kilauea Lodge, it kind of depends upon the set. So I guess if you say, stay with us and look at accommodations here, for like the standard room, right? This room here, actually, let's do the book now and see what happens, right? The rooms range from about $285 US a day. Those cabins, if you're doing camping, are like $80 a day.
That's actually not bad.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Again, this is not the you don't have TVs in your room and a swimming pool and gym stuff. It's a older style accommodation, but it's really quite comfortable. I think that these rooms are maybe priced differently. You see, check availability, and we look at booking for stuff. I guess you have to find a date. I think these guys have something. Let's go to a different range here. And so we're seeing things. These are around $1,000 a night. Well, no, excuse me, 200. That's $266 a night, right?
Oh,
this is for 4 nights, right?
Yeah, and that's on over a weekend because you picked up Thursday.
Yeah. They also have this has a really amazing dining room with a great wine list. So even if you're staying at the park, going out and check out some of these restaurants in the Colorado Village. Here's the park, the town of Volcano, and where the visitor center is. So this is again another place to go. Again,
do they cook hangi there, or is cooking concept of hangi?
Yeah, they have a lot of native dishes there. So there's a
like
oh God, we're in the menu. No, you can't do this to me. I haven't eaten yet.
So
sorry,
like
but
what they do in like in New Zealand is they have a concept called hangi, where what they do is they what do they do? I think so wherever there's like geothermal sources, they dig out a pit and they put all the food in, and then they cover it with coal.
Yeah.
The first layer is coals. They put the food in, and then they put another layer of coal, and then they'll close it. Do they do that there in Hawaii?
Yes, yeah. So they call them. Those are called luau's, and it's the same Polynesian thing.
Yeah.
You know, they have the fish that's wrapped in the tea leaves, and they've got the yams that are cooking with it, and it's in a fire pit. They'll take a pig and roast it with the whole pig inside there. That's a bunch of stuff. Yes, that is
like, oh my God.
Because remember, you know, the Polynesian Triangle is the north is Hawaii, the southwest is New Zealand, and southeast is Easter Island. That region is all Polynesia, and they have very similar things. They'll have very similar names for the dishes and very similar styles because it's sort of a common set there. Anyway,
this guy.
So I just wanted to encourage.
Sorry.
I wanted to encourage people to consider visiting. There, even in for some. I just wanted to check. Let's just check to see what's the live thing right now. Here's a current live set. From there again, we see that's that lava chain going. Look at it in thermal image, and there's a thermal camera showing you. There's been this hot spot over here where there's a little vent opening up on the set. From the point of view of looking down from the edge. Again, this is from one of the edges of the visitor center. You can watch. It's a little bit gassy, but when the wind blows, it kind of clears it away. So it can look pretty good. Here's a direction. Here's a really nice direction from the outside. But again, there's a little. Also, you can sometimes fog because it's a tropical area, so sometimes it's rainy or foggy. But you can again see stuff at night. If this was night, we would see the cracks through the crust. We would see glow areas, and particularly that surface flow here, Gilligan's Island, and little bits around the region. So.
Today's advert for Go Visit Hawaii has been brought to you by Landon's turtleneck.
Yes. So I
visit Hawaii. They got great food, great views, great people, and good whiskey and wine and volcanoes.
Yeah. And other medicinal stuff. So this is at the over. This is
and some kind of medicinal plant.
Yes, they have a number of things, but the luau, like the hunky, is a really amazing experience to go and see. There certainly are hotel areas where they do that actively. You can find on the island. I like the Big Island because it's more rural, it's less touristy, and to me more authentic. But there you go. So yes. Is it questions from the chat?
Yes, I've been collecting the questions. Maanyaa, do you have any questions first?
So in conclusion, it's still like a pretty healthy activity.
Yes.
And but we have no fucking idea what's happening at White Island at the moment. No effing idea.
All we know is that there's been enough acid coming out of the vent to cause the electronics to fail.
So
for those of you who are joining us now, White Island is the island in New Zealand, not Pele,
not Hawaii.
Right. Yeah.
So this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think so for
like that from the air.
For companies who are offering tourism and guides and transport facilities to that area, the ethical thing would be to wait till you get the instruments back in there and to figure out what's going on. And I think so that's what they will do. They don't want another tragedy to happen there.
The last time a tragedy was occurring, they had not had telemetry for quite a while, and they were blind as well. So I don't know.
Oh, wow.
I mean, you might. I don't know what the government is doing. What the government is saying when we don't have instrumentation, stay away until we can get it back. reason why they can't get it back is that there are geologists that are not anxious to go up to a potentially explosive situation and put instruments there, right? So I don't know how they're going to resolve it, and I don't know if it's particularly acidic. I know that around Kilauea, instruments have to be serviced on a regular basis. Earthquakes and acid and so forth will cause things to fail. The thing is that they were starting to lose instruments over time. So it wasn't that they had one instrument, they had a collection of instruments put around the island after the last tragedy, and they started losing them, and there wasn't a push to replace them actively. And now they lost all the instrumentation. So they're currently sort of blind, and so they have to
on a tourism website. They have said that to ensure the safety of locals and visitors, there are currently no boat tours or helicopter flights that land on the island, while visitors cannot set foot on the Whakaari or White Island. Scenic flights are still available, so you're like at a considerable height, and you can still view the island.
Yeah. So you views at sea like this, right? This is what you would see on a plane or helicopter going by. Boats stay well offshore at a safe distance. But again, responsible tourism would say, that they're and hopefully what they can do is get a new class of instruments there. Maybe the instruments can be hardened better, but also as they start going out, they should be going back and replacing. You don't want to lose. You want to go blind, because if you go in blind, replace this thing, you'll have to take a chance to put the instruments in place.
Shesha, I'm going to put a picture in our in our group chat in Discord, just if you can put it up, please.
Other questions?
Yeah, we have a question that is in Tree Feline asked, is the size increase of the caldera until eruption correlated to a given amount of magma and thus the volume lava for the lava flow ?
So she's talking about this distance measurement, which is across. We're talking about this graph here, the distance measurement. And just to give you context in terms of the graph, there's an instrument somewhere over here, instrument somewhere over here. So we were talking about the span across the top of the mountain, and so they're asking, does this correspond to the how active it is? And the answer is somewhat complex. Right. If, for example, if we look at what happened leading up to the beginning of the eruption here, right? It wasn't erupting and the thing was expanding, and then it broke open and collapsed. Why? Because a lot of magma turned into lava and came out. So it rapidly ejected. And in fact, the early flows that were in the beginning of this eruption were quite spectacular in terms of the volume of stuff that's coming out was truly staggering. And so you saw the run up to the eruption where the thing started expanding and accelerating, and then it broke up on the top, and because so much stuff came up, it sunk in. But now it's been re-expanding as the eruption goes on, right? So this drop is not necessarily because it's slowing down. Sometimes drops occurs because it comes out. This drop here 5 years ago was the end of that 35.5-year eruption where the summit collapsed. So it can drop because of an end eruption. It can drop because of a beginning eruption. Generally, when you see a drop, a lot of magma has moved quite rapidly towards the surface. When it drops, because so sometimes it expands and rapid expansion is getting there, and it breaks open and then it sinks in. So it's complex a bit, but generally you see it drop at the beginning of an eruption or at the end of an eruption, and you see expand generally as it leads up to an eruption, but sometimes it can expand during an eruption. Pele she's kind of complex. So again, look at this graph. Here was the end of that big eruption. We had that mini eruption here, and this is the beginning of the new eruption. We saw a blip, and then this steady climb. So will this climb reach to a spot? Is next month, will this thing be a resumption of expanding, or will it start contracting? It remains to be seen. Generally, if it's on a steady climb, you kind of know what's happening. When you start to see the inflections, you step back and say, hey, maybe something is changing. So this puzzlement of this little dip, in the grand scheme of things, you can hardly see it. So in some ways that may not be significant, but if the trend continues, then it might be.
So I pulled up Maanyaa, what Maanyaa wanted to show real quick. Ta-da!
Okay. Oh, yes. So this is a thing about the eruption alert levels, and Landon was at 1, which is minor volcanic rest, and most likely it has the potential for getting water down near magma and having those flash explosions. They brought it up to a 2, which is because they don't know in terms of risk. 3, 4, 5 is actually active. So Kilauea would probably be at a 3 right now.
Oh wow! Okay. Oh yeah.
Right, because it's undergoing an eruption, right? And there's hazard near the vent, right? Don't go down into the lava lake because you'll die.
Don't go swimming in lava.
Yes, yes.
Listen to professionals. Don't take legal advice from YouTube lawyers. The usual.
Yes, if you can see.
Get a PR person.
So this is what the island looks like. So that Sky Tower, that's in Auckland. That's at a height of 328 meters. And if you compare what's the total height of the island, it's 800 meters. It's kind of like it's most of it is submerged underwater. Like almost 95% of it is underwater. If I might say.
Yeah, so most of the mass is underneath. Yeah, it has reached the it reached the surface some time ago, and most of the activity comes from that little lake level in the center where water can get down close to where the magma is sitting. So I take it that my answer was not quite correct. So
you want me to reread the question?
Sure. Yeah, so other people can.
Let me rephrase. If you got a volcano in rest mode and take a baseline, compare that if a volcano starts eruption and the amount of lava flow after eruption. Also, George, don't go chasing lava falls. Yes.
Yeah. So you're talking about a volcano is not erupting, and you look at the baseline and it's about to erupt. Generally, you see that baseline expand because the magma is causing things to stretch. Then when it starts to erupt, if it starts to erupt vigorously, where there's a lot of stuff coming out, then you tend to see a contraction at the beginning of the eruption. So a volcano not erupting, baseline about to erupt, generally that baseline begins to expand and accelerate like you see in this curve. Then when it begins to erupt, if it's trickling out, you're not going to see much change. But if it rushes out from a big event, then it will tend to contract. But then as the eruption goes on, you start getting those DI events, and the magma chamber underneath is starting to turn over, and you've got a lot of energy coming up in the system. It begins to re-expand. So does that answer your question? Right? From a not erupting, tends to expand, oftentimes accelerates towards the end of the eruption starting. Eruption begins. If eruption is vigorous, it contracts for a bit. And eruption continues, it re-expands.
I absolutely love our
towards the end. It oftentimes if it ends in a bang, it'll contract again.
So question, why not go swimming in lava if you can't drown in it?
Because of thermal stuff. I mean, you get there's certainly problems with burning up. But let's say you had some magical suit that could insulate you from the thermal energy. The next thing, of course, is gas. There's a lot of very nasty gases coming off the thing. So let's say, okay, you have a gas mask and a thermal suit. Now the next thing is the undertow, right? When you look at this lava lake and the lava is coming up here and going this way, if we're swimming in this stuff, again, magical thermal barrier, and you've got oxygen. The undertow here is pretty significant, right? You get caught in a current of rock. I mean, this is liquid rock flowing around. So it's like swimming in sand. It's hard to, and the sand is moving. It's hard to.
Are you telling us that you would, in fact, drown in lava if you were able to swim in it?
It's like quicksand, isn't it? It's like quicksand or magma.
Like quicksand.
That's what it's like.
Yeah, and it would be dragged down in here. So this would be the worst thing, because you'd be dragged down deep and gone until you get recycled.
Children, don't go swimming in lava.
So there's a problem. Say, well, let's say you have a boat. The boat could go along here, but again, it's going to reach this surface and towards the edge. Now, that being said, you have the other thing that's happening is you have where is it? You have Gilligan's Island, right? Here's a large boat, almost 200 plus meters across, that's been swimming around in this lava since for a number of years. So this boat's actually stayed there for quite some time. We think this chunk here slid down from the edge when this thing first started, and you had just a tiny spot at the deep part of the pit. There's a big earthquake, and the thing slid down into it. There was a water lake. There used to be an actual lake of water at the very bottom of the pit, and when it was relatively cold, the lava started coming up, and the cold rock caused the bottom to seal against itself, and it's been floating ever since then. It was I think it was Red Eye that had suggested Gilligan's Island. And that sort of is an unofficial name.
He does have a question about Gilligan's Island from Red Eye. It says, is Gilligan's Island intact still?
Yes, it is intact. It's sitting here. There is not really active liquid flow around it, so this would be sort of pasty lava around it. It still is quite buoyant, and it's still intact. If this, let's assume that this thing continues to rise. The Gilligan's Island is less dense, so it continues to float at the top. At some point, this eruption phase will end, and at some point, you might be able to have a trail going out, walk across there, and onto Gilligan's Island. It would be nice. I would love to walk down there one day, but this, of course, assumes that something doesn't major happen where you get some big kaboom thing or other stuff going on. Who knows how it ends?
Aries also asks if there are any geoengineering projects that humans can feasibly come up with that would manipulate these eruptions to make them safer.
Well, okay, so that's an interesting question. Let's think about, make them safer. Is in safer than what? In this particular case, the lava is sitting there in a nice pit and not bother anyone. But let's say the lava had reached the surface of magma, started going down the spine and pouring out. About the best you can do is sort of temporarily divert the stream of lava. The problem is that the stream of lava tends to pile up against the side where you're diverting and overflow. Remember, like at the end of that last 2008 great eruption, over a cubic kilometer of material came out. You're not going to take a bunch of stone barriers and cause a cubic kilometer to go.
I think that's what they mean by manipulate, right? If we can drill in and build a hole or a vent ourselves that prevents lava from getting that high in the first place, or getting that initially.
Interesting question. Let's say we wanted to tap into this area here and say, could we bleed off some of the gas, right? Well, what you would do is you would have potentially a huge gas vent coming out and a lot of poisonous gas, which is not nice. Whether or not you could drill it enough to get to magma. The problem is as you get down near magma, those drill bits will start melting, right? You can't, it isn't like a water balloon where you poke the surface and stuff sprays out.
It's not a zit, guys.
It's hard to drill down to that area. And I'm not sure you'd want to have this gas coming out. Now you might say, well, what could you do to make Kilauea safer? And the answer is, don't build damn hotels along the ocean side.
No.
Don't allow them to build vacation homes. I mean, to build, there was a place here that was a Hawaiian Estates area where they built a bunch of homes right up next to the national park boundary. It upset Hawaiians a lot because they consider this area to be special and having these homes sitting there. But how stupid can you be to build a home beneath the summit of one of the world's most active volcanoes? Guess what's going to happen?
I like the idea that we're going to, this question is leading me down the line of, is that the way we end up building all of Elon Musk's stupid trains? By drilling into a lava flow and pumping it full and just blasting it in the direction we want it to go, and it'll just flow and make the tunnel that we want.
Oh my
that's probably no more wacky than some of the other stuff going on. By the way, when I mentioned the seamount here, Kamahihua Konaloa Lohi seamount. We've had some recent quakes in it as well. Nothing at the summit, but it continues to be. This is an active volcano. Continues to gurgle away. But in terms of geoengineering, to try and, like, for example, could you say, well, could you do something with this pressure building up in Mauna Loa? And the answer is, well, you're going to drill down near where magma is, and your drilling system will fail well before you get to magma. Mm-hmm. If you created a weak spot, you might start an eruption as opposed to bleed off pressure.
Oh, that's actually the next suggestion. Can we build domes over volcanoes in case they erupt so they can contain it? Or can we just preemptively erupt a volcano so that the intensity thereof is less? Those are both from Eli.
Some of the things that people have explored is to say, if Mauna Loa is going to erupt, can we cause it to erupt in a direction that's safer? Right.
So now, you're telling me, can we induce a pregnancy faster so it's more safe?
I mean, part of the problem, if you look at let's go back to Hawaii on the map of Hawaii, right? And if we look into here, Mauna Loa has ability of its own eruption to go lots of places, right? It tends to. Let me go up here. It tends to flow in any number of directions, right? For example, in 1983, Hilo that sits here, the lava went from near the surface down almost to Hilo in a matter of about 2 days. It was a very rapid flow. When Mauna Loa erupts, it makes Kilauea's eruptions look like child play. I mean, typically, volumes that come out of Mauna Loa have been recorded in the millions of cubic meters per hour. Right? Yeah. When it flows, it pours out. Now, once it starts flowing, it's very hard to stop that much lava doing anything. Right? Even dumping water in it, because the ocean can't stop it.
Right.
Pissing on it isn't going to just do anything other than evaporate its piss.
So
Calvin pissing on a volcano sticker.
Yes.
Bento in no relation as couldn't Superman just drop a frozen lake on an erupting volcano? Or is that scene in Superman 3 unrealistic? Yes, it's unrealistic.
So disastrous. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yes.
It is as unrealistic as the Scientologist Xenu and the Thetans.
Yeah,
you thought if you thought that DC Universe having Superman fight Zod in Metropolis was a bad idea because Superman wouldn't want to cause that much collateral damage. It's got nothing on Superman 3 dropping a fucking ice lake onto a.
By the way, in this particular image, I want to point out in the satellite image.
That's why children, even if you're from Krypton, attend your science classes related to Earth.
Superman just caused
a fucking frozen lake on a volcano.
So this is the case where here's Kilauea right here at the cursor, and the wind is blowing this way, so you see the volcanic gas coming off of the surface there. But in the case of Mauna Loa, if it's erupting, if you said, hey, let's not send, we don't want to risk it going down towards Hilo, so where do you send it? Well, in a case like when Samuel Clemens Mark Twain wrote Roughing It, he was staying here at Volcano House, Mauna Loa was erupting here, and the lava went all the way over to this part of the island, right? And it actually went for several years in this great flow. So if you try to tap on the side, are you going to send lava down into someone else's backyard? And then that if that hole isn't enough, and you got lots of magma pushing on there, and it breaks open someplace else, it can easily go there. So they tend to be very, very difficult to try to control what these things are doing.
Next question is from. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. Al asks, has Landon ever gotten cut by obsidian? And then Smitty followed up with, or cut anyone else with it.
Yes, there's a really nice place in North America called Glass Mountain, and it's an obsidian flow that was ancient obsidian flow where you have a mountain, you have a huge mountain worth of just really beautiful volcanic glass. It's quite sharp, and if you don't use proper things, you can cut yourself with it. And they have a sign there basically saying "Rockhounds welcome." Like you've got a giant mountain full of obsidian, so go nuts.
Go find a rock.
Yeah, it is the case when you're out on the lava, when you're out in the lava fields, you have to be very careful about falling down. Because the top has a lot of glass in it, you can cut yourself. The other problem, not just with the cuts, is the fact that that surface is very biologically active, right? You've got rich minerals in an area that is tropical, and so the bacteria is just going to town, going nuts on the surface of this rich minerals. In fact, that's part of how the first stage of the lava breaking down is where the bacteria begins to erode it, and you get a seed in there, a little bit of grass that starts to sprout. But if you fall down and get cut, the problem is that you can get a really nasty infection because the whole place is sort of giant petri dish. So you got to be quite careful. And in fact, you're better off covering yourself as much as possible, even though you're in the middle of the tropical stuff. You want to bundle up because you don't want to get cut and get into an infection.
Yeah, that would be no good.
You need very good shoes. Yeah.
Aries asked, why does lava always behave like hot water in movies?
Because Hollywood prefers the drama over the science.
Volcano's not dramatic enough.
Or they haven't figured out the science of flow with lava, isn't it? It's kind of not easy to replicate that. Water is very easy to replicate and observe and measure, isn't it? But lava,
yes.
You put something in it, it's gonna burn away and melt away, so you can't figure out the viscosity.
And it's dense,
or I don't know.
And it's viscous. It's very dense, very viscous.
Yeah.
I think it also has,
I think so that's the reason.
It might also have something to do with what people are familiar with and their expectation. And meeting that expectation, because when you present something to people that is not necessarily so when you put somebody in front of Jell-O, you kind of expect how Jell-O is going to behave. And so you put somebody in front of a non-Newtonian fluid, they're not necessarily going to, and it's representing a gelatinous cube, they're not necessarily going to understand what they're watching.
That's why I had the issue with the Korra, the last with the Avatar. I'm going to get snowballed for this, but lava bending was introduced in the Legend of the Korra, and I had a lot of issue with that because it's like, that's not how lava works, buddy. I was so angry. I was like, come on.
That's the real problem with the Legend of Korra.
Really good point. Like, when you show this to somebody and they say, oh, that must be lava, right? They think, oh, there's lava, there's lava, there's lava. Like, no, this is all lava.
Yeah.
People don't realize it happens to be glowy red because it's dark enough you can see the glow, and because the lava is moving enough that it hasn't frozen. But literally, when I'm there at the visitor overlook, and people are seeing this, and someone comes up and says, well, where's the lava? Right? And
you're looking at it.
Say, it's there. Well, why isn't it red? Well, okay, I can go and zoom in on one of these spots here and show you some red stuff and some red stuff over here. But
I think so that they're not asking the right question. It's like, are you asking for magma or are you asking for lava? That's the two very different things.
So,
isn't it?
You're not going to see the magma because by definition, the magma stuff is underground. But when you say when you see red glowy lava, the lava has to be moving fast enough that it doesn't crust over. So when lava, you have a waterfall of lava, when lava is pouring down the side of the thing in a nice rate, it starts to you get nice glowy bits, but then that stuff crusts over, freezes over, and so you get a tube. Well, and so if you look at the spot about the lava tubes, that's the problem that people can see. So yes, it doesn't look like.
I think the reason you run into this problem isn't entirely based on movies telling people, trying to portray something that they're going to understand what's happening and why it's urgent, but also that people think lava's like that because of movies. So it's a problem that is they're both the same problem, that are both caused by themselves in like this circle jerk of like, well, people expect lava to look like that because of movies, but movies make lava look like that because people expect it to look like that in movies. So it's like, how do we get stuck in this?
Yeah. So when I've taken people on tours, like I took this famous astronomer and his wife. Just after he was part of getting a team getting a Nobel Prize, and I took him on as a congratulations on a helicopter tour over the lava fields. And before we left, I showed them pictures of what like this and say, this is what lava looks like. This is what fresh lava looks like. This is so they understand, and they're not just impressed with, oh, here's a little hole where there's a bit of glowy bits, but you can see what lava looks like, right? Obviously, this is not down here is not lava. That's rock. But again, if you set the expectations, you begin to see what's happening. You then get a better thing. But I've talked to people that went to the park, went up here, looked at this thing, and said, I didn't see any lava. Right?
Of course, they don't know what they're looking at.
But there are people that show up and they go on Hawaii and they say, well, where are the volcanoes? And you say, well, you're on one the entire mountain is volcanoes, right? So
I'm only here for the geese.
Smitty's got an interesting question.
Please.
Ask Landon how hot lava would be to flow as fast like water. Would it be easier if it was shredded like whipped honey? Okay, that's another question. So part one of the question: how hot the lava would have to be to flow fast like water?
It's good.
And where will you find that kind of lava?
Well, probably the hottest lava you can find on Earth is at Kilauea. And so one of the things you see when you have lava that flows, you want to have lava with relatively little silicon. it's going to be relatively little sulfur, right? Things like sulfurs, those compounds tend to make it, as indication, tend to make the lava more pasty. You want it more liquid. So basalt, magma coming up through the ocean plate is tend to be much higher temperature and much more fluid. And why do we say that? Well, when you look at something like this kind of shield mountain, right? This shield volcano where you get very, very gradual flows. This is because the lava comes up and it flows very, very fast. When you get the giant Mount Fuji or Mount Rainier, you got this nice pointy bit, that's where the lava is very, very thick and it tends to pile up, as opposed to the shield volcanoes like this where it's very, very, very thin. And so you want magma from the mantle coming up through an oceanic plate, so it doesn't cool as much, very high temperature, very low sulfur. You don't want a continental stuff like, again, a Mount Rainier, a Mount Baker, a Mount St. Helens is really remelted continental rock with all kinds of sulfur stuff. You get the stinky mud
explosive,
but
the
lava that comes, yes, and pasty, and those volcanoes tend to be cranky.
It looks like it's sticky.
Kilauea, you can smell sulfur, but it's relatively light, and the flow tends to be higher. The temperature, some of the hottest lavas measured on Earth, tend to be found in places like Kilauea. Temperatures approaching, they found lava temperatures approaching 1500 Celsius there. The problem is when you get to the point where you say, well, could you get it hotter to have it flow faster? At some point, you have some compounds start to vaporize, right? You go from, okay, I've got really liquid rock, but it's such high temperature that now you get rock vapor coming out.
Right.
And so when you get super high temperatures, now you get rock vapor, and rock vapor
you
is
start
really
having
weird
the
because
process
it's gas
of
coming out, and you get rock fog and so forth.
So it sounds like it would almost need a different
sublimation
consistency of atmosphere.
Yeah. Because
yes.
sublimation starts happening at higher temperatures.
Yeah. So you want to have a high volume of lava coming up from the mantle in an ocean, so that it's high temperature and that volume is going to allow it to minimize the crusting over. So when at 2008, when it came out the end of the island and had that giant flow, you had very, very thick things that were, they had lava flows were like 50 meters thick of stuff, and that thing was flowing like crazy. And you had lots of glowy bits there because it was going so fast. Still, it as viscous as rock. It still is liquid rock. When I would sample lava flows out of Pu'u'o'o, it was like, and I would stick the pyre iron into the lava. It was like trying to drive a spike into sand. It was that thick. It's not sloshy like a water in a bucket. It's like trying to stir sand. And when the lava is flowing, if you're not careful, it will take your rod and pull it out of your hands and send it down, right? So you have to go in and hit it, and as soon as you start striking, pull back to pull it out, but not have it splash on you. You don't want to go and back to you, because
I think there's also like a limit to
lava is bad.
There's a limit to language, right? There's only so much language we can use to describe things. So the reason why we use water as a comparable to lava is because we use words like flow. We use words like pull and splash, but it's not. So your brain will automatically go to something you're familiar with. What do you think of when you think of splash? Oh, you think of like hot tea. You think of water. You think of like backsplash from whatever it is you're.
I think so. Instead of splash, you can use splatter, I guess.
Even that is it might be more viscous, but you've still got this. There's a little bit of a language, like a nomenclature problem where it comes to like how limited language is and can be. But short answer from George: no, you can't get lava to flow like water.
You get splashy bits like this. But this was a very, very high temperature event. Yeah. And what was happening here was you actually had rock vapor pushing out the lava, right? So the stuff which reach boiling point, yet rock boiling, and other materials still liquid, and it kind of foams out that way.
And in a freeze frame, it will look like lava, but what it actually, or it'll look like water, but what it probably more closely resembles is somebody dropping a rock, like a heavy rock, onto onto like a fire that's gone out recently, and it's all coals. You drop it, and the rocks splash and come up and get flung around. But this is less watery, more thick.
Yeah. So this is one of the fissures that occurred near Pu'o'o where it broke out, and you can see from the height, the picture I took, the height of the trees, just how high this stuff is. And these blobs here, I mean, these are large boulders. They have to be liquid and glowing, but it's throwing large boulders up into the air. When these things come down, it's like taking and dropping rocks from great height. They hit the ground, and the ground is thundering because you've got this tremendous massive stuff pounding the ground, and so the ground is shaking, vibrating, because you've got all this rock going bang, 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 even though it's liquid and splashing. Now, because this area of the world is some of the wettest in the world, it takes a lot. The vegetation doesn't instantly burst into flames, right? It takes a while before the temperature starts to wear away.
It's more similar to acid at first, and then it'll start to light.
Yes. So in that sense, by the time we moved around the other side of that vent, and it started slowing down, right? The poor trees in the background, basically their leaves kind of burned away, and it started slowing down. But again, these things are rocks being flown up in the air and coming down and hitting the ground with the same, because they have the mass.
It's more similar to shrapnel.
Yes. Excellent point. They have the mass.
That's what I'm here for.
So when so here I am, doing out on this was again in 2013, out again near Pu'o during the flow, and I've got a tire in my hand. I poked into the lava, and I had to use both hands to dig it in. Like, imagine taking a hammer and trying to dig it into sand, and then with all my mind pulling it out, but pulling it across and dunk it into the bucket of water.
And in
where
this
the
picture,
lava freezes off of the...
you're also standing on lava.
Yes, although this is fairly this part it's solid. So this is the previous lava flow, so it's there, but there's lava underneath here. It's kind of springy, kind of bouncy, right?
It's like when you make when you make Jello and then you get that crusty line on the top of it when you leave it to cool. He's walking on that if it's got like cuts in it.
Boing.
Yes.
Boing,
now this was an older flow, probably several months old, so it's hardened, and then the pressure from underneath causes the crack. And if you stuck your hand down on that thing, it would get quite hot because there's lava underneath and lava flowing out here on the top, again with those pasty poyoi stuff. But
don't stick your hand in lava.
Yes, be careful. So other questions from the chat, and did I answer the questions?
Yes, it looks like you got. No, it looks like you got the questions. They did slow down a little bit. I did see one from Al that's asking if you would agree that plug domes are kind of like French onion soup.
Yes. Well, of course, proper French onion soup, you have the crust on the side, right? To have a proper bowl of French onion soup, you can't have a neat bit of cheese on top. You want the cheese to have boiled over and go down the side of the pot, because that crust you peel off on the side of the French onion soup is one of the really important parts of experiencing French onion soup. And yes, this is sort of French onion soup crust stuff from older material. I would agree.
And Feline had one last question: has Landon had success with dating volcanoes?
No,
I mean,
has he been able to use volcanoes to find dates? I think that's what the question was.
I read it verbatim.
Well, dating volcanoes. I mean, I worked at analyzing some of the dates of eruptions because in the island of Hawaii, there's one of the things that they do is try to determine the age of the surface. And there's a lot of study about when you have fresh lava to start hardening, to try to say, well, how long ago was this rock liquid? And therefore we can turn around and actually determine from all this stuff how old it is. And so there's actually some precise dating. So I've done some really good dating as determine the date of lava flows.
Oh, no, you're right. It's dating through volcanoes. My mistake. Yeah. No, Maanyaa was right. I definitely read it wrong. The dating through volcanoes. No, you can't go swimming in volcanoes. We talked about this already. You can't go through them.
for that purpose. It is a upset, but again, taking that part of dating lava flows, important. There is a really important notion of being able to date materials. So for example, if we look at this spot here, we have here was a this is before the Blue Oak collapse, and we see that we can identify ages of lava and when things flowed because the rock reacts with the atmosphere and decays. You can look at both plant life as well as oxidation and mineral involvement. So we can get to the point of understanding very precise dates of materials that occurred, and so this is a dating thing.
Very.
But here's a period when you had the pit just formed, the eruption in 2018 ended, and you had this little lake at the bottom, water lake, before the lava went and said boil away, and now it's up. This was the height. Now it's up to about here, right? So this series of this pit, how much is filled up there, and so who knows, right? So next month, that's for prediction. Do you think that next month Pele will be more active or less active?
I think what's gonna happen is we're gonna see like a little bit of a divot, and then it's gonna get really active again for a little while to continue that upward trend where it dips down a little bit and then up. And Maanyaa walked away from her computer, so she can still hear us, but I think I think we're professionals here.
Anything for the chat? So question is, will the eruption rate slow down? Will it stop? Will it be about the same? Will it pick up? Next month, will we see? Because we have it. So we have the stats of the change from where is it? Here, right? We have these stats, right? So, kind of question is, will the lake continue to rise? Will the volume rate continue to be as much, or will it go down? And by the next month, by the next time we meet.
I think that I would suspect, I mean, this is just me. What do I know, right? I'm just kind of going off of what I'm looking at and what I've learned from these streams so far. So I don't have a whole ton of experience, but it kind of looks like it might dip down a little bit next month and then start climbing again.
Yeah,
I mean, sort of continue that upward trend where it does down a little bit. So I think it'll go down a little bit more and then it'll pick up.
So I concur with you. I think the next time we meet, the lava lake will have risen.
Yep.
It might have risen by about the same amount. Remember, as it rises, it expands. It gets harder for it to rise. The surface level, right? It's going up like a martini glass shape. So as it goes up, it goes out, and it gets harder for it to rise. So it may not be 6 meters, but if it's still in the 1,300 tons per day type level, I suspect that this level, we might see this kind of sustained outgassing. Then we might see 5 meters, maybe, and we might see 6 to 7 million cubic meters. And you're right, Josh. I think if you look at some of the stuff, if you look here, we had a very vigorous DI events at the beginning of the month, not much in the middle, and then reasonably vigorous end of the month. So my guess is next time we look at this graph, we might see the same thing. We might see DI events that might go down a bit, but overall net about the same. I would be very surprised if the eruption ended. I'd be very surprised if the eruption took off.
Yeah, it's not quite, if you look at when it did take off last time, it's not quite at that peaking area. So that's why I suspect that it's, at least that's my reasoning as to why I don't think it would go yet. Looks like it'll probably be a couple more years, but.
Yes, and I mean, now the length of time, that's another big question. How long is this going to sustain? I think, it's hard to say how long this eruption will last, right? We had when the big eruption ended and it collapsed, we saw it expanding again. Wasn't erupting, and all of a sudden it came out. We thought, oh, here's a little bit of stuff, but it stopped. This mini eruption didn't go for a long time. So when it started again, we thought, oh, another one of these short eruptions for a couple of weeks and then stop, and it keeps going.
Yeah.
So Pele there's a joke that Pele basically takes your prediction and tosses it into lava, right?
Yeah.
Hindsight, you can see things, but
it's hard to
during
predict.
during that 35.5-year eruption, there were many times where people say something would happen. A giant pit would collapse and lava would stop flowing, and people say that's the end of the eruption, and it would start. You keep going, right? So, but again, I'm predicting that the eruption will be at about the same rate. The gas rate will be about the same rate. It may not rise as fast because it's harder for the surface to rise as it spreads out. I don't think magma is at the case where it's going to enter in one of the tubes and start draining yet.
The predictions from the chat are more active and more eruption from Aries.
Mm-hmm.
April thinks it'll dip out, that it'll dip out for years after a month. And Aries says it's going to go and get up to 9,000 tons a day. And thinks that it's building up to a big eruption soon.
And by the way, that thing about the 9,000 tons a day and a big eruption, that's entirely in the cards. The way you would argue about that is to say, well, let's look at the earthquakes going on, right? And when we talk about where is it over here with the quakes, right? The continued magma activity here says there's still magma moving towards the surface. That hasn't stopped. And so that prediction is also entirely in the cards. Plus, the other thing that might suggest that is this little dip. If this dip is indication, it's that the top of the mountain as a drum has stretched and begins to collapse in because the magma is pushing out. That could indicate a greater flow.
Yeah, there is absolutely something to be said that looking at these charts are actually completely looking at the wrong information, and looking at the charts for the deeper earthquakes is where people should be looking.
Yeah, but then the other question is how much of this magma is heading towards Mauna Loa and not Kilauea? That's another question. Yeah. So what I'm hoping people do when we do these sort of
monthly
events, if they watch this and watch the next, is begin to get the idea about the pattern, the rhythm, and what the instrumentation tells you. It's hard sometimes to be absolutely sure, well, next month it's going to do this, but you begin to see stuff. And what I'm hoping would be nice is that when there's a giant shift in the telemetry, because either it's going to rev up or it's going to stop, right? That's another interesting phase. Eruptions go through phases.
Yeah.
Right. The 35.5-year eruption had over 40 phases where it went into a different mode. So the current pattern that we are seeing, it's probably a mistake to assume that this pattern is going to go on forever.
Right.
There's going to be at some point some change in the mode of stuff because stuff is stretched, or stuff is slowing down, or stuff is speeding up.
But Landon, if it's not like that, how could you possibly know that there were volcanoes in the past? Were you there?
You could ask Kent Hovind and his.
Go talk to Dapper Dino and Bent Hovind about it. They'll tell you all about that.
Bent Hovind, no relation, but seriously,
no relation.
It is. You could hindsight is gets to be pretty good, but future stuff is there. So when Hawaiians ask, am I in danger? The answer is probably not in the near term, but continue to monitor this stuff and to get to know the rhythm of the mountain. This is why it's so important to instrument a volcano. That's why they want to get the instruments back on White Island, because you need to have enough of a baseline to get the idea about its rhythm. And when the rhythm changes, something is up, right? We know right now what's happening. Magma is coming up through the tubes, coming up to the bottom of Halemaumau and pushing up the dough and popping out of surface spots. When we see a change in telemetry, the change of behavior, then you kind of step back and say, okay, let's see what's happening, because something new. Are we going into a new phase, or is the eruption ending? Is that new phase more vigorous or less vigorous? Who knows? Well, that's what's fun is to watch and see. So I hope
it's fun to guess and take bets and get a free beer.
yeah.
Support a charity
for stuff. And there's and also I say a volcano house. That's another thing people do is also for gin and tonic, where you go and you place a bet as to what the tilt meter will be at midnight the next day, and the person gets the most closest to it gets something to rest their bets.
If ever anybody is doing that with me, I'm constantly at least a 45-degree angle. We should look at wrapping up. Maanyaa, got anything going on? That time of the month, next Friday. Maybe Miko will join us. Maybe.
Oh my goodness! If she does, I'm going to be stoked. It's been a while she has been on here with us, so
yeah.
Also, I'm working on a script around the whole Vic Mignogna, Rakita Law, GoFundMe, and the IOLTA rules and regulations in regards to that, because I'm just raising a fair question, because if you're raising like $201,000 in GoFundMe and a law firm is the beneficiary of that, but you're using the client's name and using his fans to collect the money, the fans deserve the receipts. And under the IOLTA laws, I think so far as I have read, the lawyer is supposed to issue invoices to their
clients.
To their clients before they can deduct the money from the IOLTA. It's a what do you call it? It's a kind of a
process.
It's not a process. It's a where you keep, it's a fund where you keep the money for your client.
Oh yeah, it's like its own account.
Yeah.
Is it like an escrow or something like that? You're saying? Or no? It's a retainer. It's on retainer, right?
No. It's that they are safe holding the funds for their client.
A trust fund?
Trust fund. That's what it is.
Yeah,
Ink Boy got it in the chat.
So, but when we look at Vic Mignogna's testimony, when he was
deposition,
when he was deposed, he said that he was never issued any invoices. He has no control over that fund.
And he was paying for everything.
And Yeah, and he trusts his lawyer. So I'm like, but if he's not issuing invoices to his client, he is in violation of the rules of the IOLTA. So I'm kind of coming up with a script around that. Just state the facts and say, I've requested Rikita Law publicly by tweeting to him, and also I've sent him 2 messages privately asking him if he can point us to the right direction where we can find the receipts, but I've gotten no reply, so I'm just like, what's going on? So just a concise little thing, maybe 3 to 5 minute thing around that. So
she says
that's
that, and then it's gonna be 30 minutes.
It's going to be like this and this, and that connects there. That gif of
that always happens. The guy looking at like all the things are attached. He's just going crazy.
Yeah, something like that. So so that's what I'm working at, and that's
very
me.
cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Landon? What do you got going on?
Wait. For the record, I deleted my GoFundMe account back in May of 2020 due to a policy disagreement or a disagreement with what GoFundMe was doing. It's an internal geek thing. Generally, I find that GoFundMe tries to be ethical, but I had some disagreements. So I'm glad I've been stayed out of that GoFundMe stuff. But I have other things that are happening. So I'm going to be on a show this evening, 20, which is 8 p.m. Pacific. This guy named Steve, you might have heard of him. He's the guy who's not an atheist. And I'm going to be on a show. Previous guest on the show was King Crocodile, right? And he's
which
show
is it? Which one?
This is going to be a show. I'm trying to look at stuff here because I should have that there. It's a science communication with Landon NOLL, and we're going to talk about space and sciencey stuff.
Very nice.
Oh yeah, it is on the.
We do stan King Crocodile in this house.
Yes. So it's in another 5 hours.
Yeah, I guess it's called the non sequitur show, but this might be a non sequitur. But anyway, Crocodile was on there. This guy named Steve is host. He's not an atheist, and you might say because we're going to talk about space stuff and science stuff. But if you want to continue to monitor what's happening with Kilauea, come back next month to this channel, which is exclusive for Madam Pele and what she's doing.
All the kitties in the yard are jelly that I have a regular show with Landon. All right. As for me, I actually also have a script that I've been working on with about Vic Maanyaa, but it is about the PR situation and how he might actually be able to help restore his reputation, or how he might be able to actually, fix some of the problems that he went on. Because I thought it was a little bit unfair to sit around and pick on him and tell him he needs to get a PR team and not tell him sort of what his PR team should be fucking telling him. But yeah, we're working at that. But yeah, we absolutely love King Crocodile. Notice me, King Crocodile senpai. Absolutely. That dude is fantastic.
I've had the pleasure of seeing what King Crocodile looks like, and I tell you, he lives up to his moniker. So I'll just leave it.
He lives up to his moniker of King Crocodile. You can't do this to me.
but yeah, so check out that channel, and again, come back here next month for the next thing, and we'll see just how inaccurate we are in predicting what Pele is going to do, because she's going to do whatever she wants to do, whether or not we like it. So
she's her own lady.
Yeah, that is one of those situations. There's absolutely one of those situations where it's like, whatever is going to happen, and we're just going to have to watch, listen, live with it, and maybe we can do better in the future.
But again, continue to subscribe to this channel, support, click the like button, because
links below.
If you watch this stuff over, I guarantee if you watch this stuff over a couple of months, you begin to get you begin to see the pattern that Pele is in, and then when something changes, you get even more excited because like, oh wow, look at that happen, right? And then when you go to Hawaii, you can stand there and say, yeah, I remember Landon said when it was the flow was here and that was Gilligan's Island and this happened, blah, blah, blah. You can look at stuff because this is one of those areas on Earth where the thing is changing in your lifetime. You can see visible changes. That's what's nice. You don't have to wait millions of years. You get rapid change and rapid satisfaction with.
This is going to end up in some like educational playlist for somebody being like, I need to learn everything I possibly can about volcanoes in a very short period of time. Hi there, Landon.
There you go.
All right. Yeah, this commercial for Go to Hawaii has been brought to you again by Landon's Turtleneck and some very special medicinal herbs. Thank you very much to the Patreons and the members who have supported us. Their names are listed down below. Thank you so much for your support. If you'd like to support, feel free to become a member or a Patreon. You get access to the Discord where there's all kinds of nothing but shenanigans going on.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely recommend it. It's definitely worth $1 it will cost you. And we will see you guys next time, next month, and also on next Friday. And maybe before that.
Bye.
Okay, bye!
Bye!